Forget Freddy's glove or Jason's machete, forget the creature from the Black Lagoon or the alien in the vents. Most movie monsters are external threats. They're problems you can solve, with a bigger gun, a silver bullet, or a final girl's clever escape. We watch them from a safe distance, knowing that when the lights come up, the monster is still trapped on the screen. But what if the monster wasn't under your bed? What if the monster was you? This is the terrifying idea at the heart of one of horror's most disturbing subgenres. The greatest horror isn't about some masked killer or creature feature, it's about the invisible war for the human soul. The most terrifying monster isn't an it, it's a you that is no longer you, and no genre understands how to weaponize that fear better than the Exorcism film. Its power is undeniable. When premiered the day after Christmas in 1973, it wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural trauma. People weren't just scared, they were literally sick with fear. Reports of fainting, vomiting, and fleeing theaters became part of the film's legend. Ambulances were parked outside cinemas, just waiting. Became the first horror film ever nominated for a Best Picture Oscar, proving it was more than just a scary movie. It was a serious, powerful piece of art. It basically created the template for every exorcism movie that has come since. But the question is, what is it about watching a demonic possession, this battle for a single person's soul, that haunts us in a way no physical monster ever could? What's the chilling formula that lets these films dig under our skin and stay there, long after the credits roll? To figure that out, we have to look past the jump scares. We need to dissect the terror on 3 levels: the psychological assault on our identity, the theological weight of an ancient war, and the cinematic ritual that makes it all feel terrifyingly real. The deepest fear we all have is the fear of being wiped out, but we usually think of that in physical terms. Death, being eaten by a shark, you know the deal. Exorcism movies suggest something way more sinister. They attack the last place we think is safe, the self, your mind, your consciousness, your identity. It's not a fortress, it's territory that can be invaded and occupied by a hostile force. That's the core horror of a possession film. It's not about the death of the body, but the eviction of the soul. The horror doesn't start with a monster smashing through a wall, it starts with a quiet, terrifying corruption from within. Think about the beginning of The Exorcist. The terror isn't a demon in full makeup, it's a 12-year-old girl, Regan McNeil, whose personality just starts to shift. It starts small, she starts cursing, she has a weird new imaginary friend named Captain Howdy, and a Ouija board seems to be more than just a game. Her mom, Chris, a rational modern woman, does what any of us would do. She looks for a rational modern explanation. She takes her to doctors. And this is the first brilliant move the genre makes. The first signs of possession look almost exactly like the symptoms of a severe mental or neurological illness. Is Regan just acting out because of her parents' divorce? Is it puberty? A brain disorder? The film walks us through the halls of modern medicine, as Regan is put through a series of horrifying and invasive medical tests. The famous carotid angiography scene with its needles and pumps is shot with a cold documentary style that makes it almost as scary as the demon. Science, our shield against the dark, is shown to be not just powerless but kind of brutal in its own way. It can drug the body, scan it, and probe it, but it can't touch what's actually destroying her. This blurring of lines makes us profoundly uneasy. We're put in the same boat as the characters, wrestling with doubt. Is this sickness or sin? This uncertainty is the genre's secret weapon. It taps into a deep fear about how fragile our minds really are. The scariest question isn't, is the demon real? But what if it isn't? What if this is just what a total mental collapse looks like? The fear isn't just that a demon could take you over, but that you could lose your mind in a way that looks exactly like a demon is taking you over. You lose control of your own body, your own voice. The entity speaks through you. It moves your arms and legs, turning your body into a puppet for its grotesque show. You become a prisoner inside your own head, forced to watch your own defilement, the very essence of who you are. Your thoughts, your memories, is locked away while something alien wears your face like a mask. This fear became terrifyingly real in the case of Anneliese Michel, a young German woman whose story inspired the 2005 film. Anneliese, born in 1952 to a devout Catholic family, started having seizures at 16 and was diagnosed with epilepsy. For years she was treated in psychiatric hospitals, but her condition got worse. She started seeing demonic faces, hearing voices, and couldn't stand to be around religious objects. Convinced that years of medication had failed and that she was possessed, she and her family gave up on medicine and begged the Catholic Church for an exorcism. Over the next 9 months, she endured 67 rites of exorcism. Anneliese's behavior was terrifying. She spoke in different guttural voices, showed incredible strength, and hurt herself. She eventually stopped eating or drinking. On July 1, 1976, Anneliese Michel died of severe malnutrition and dehydration, weighing just 68 pounds. Her parents and the 2 priests who performed the rite were later charged and found guilty of negligent homicide. Brilliantly uses the ambiguity of this true story by telling it as a courtroom drama. The film literally puts faith and science on trial. The prosecutor argues Emily was a victim of untreated epilepsy and psychosis. The defense argues she was the victim of a real demonic attack. The horror scenes are shown as flashbacks, as evidence. We see Emily's terrifying experience, but always through the filter of legal testimony. Was her writhing a seizure or a demonic contortion? Was her knowledge of ancient languages a supernatural sign or a symptom of psychosis? The film never gives a clear answer. Instead, it forces the audience to be the jury. This is a much smarter kind of horror. It doesn't just show you a monster, it gives you a set of facts with 2 terrifying possible conclusions. One is that an ancient, evil intelligence invaded and destroyed a young woman. The other is that a woman's mind and body were so destroyed by illness that her suffering created a perfect imitation of possession, leading the people who loved her to choose a path that killed her. Which is scarier? The supernatural evil we can't understand or the biological chaos we can. The best exorcism movies force you to exist in that razor-thin space between the two, where the comfort of a rational explanation starts to fall apart. If the psychological horror is about the self collapsing, the theological horror is about what the self is collapsing into. It's about facing an evil that isn't just a human problem, but something ancient, absolute, and intelligent. A war, not for your life, but for your soul. To really get this, you have to understand that demonic possession isn't a Hollywood invention. It's an ancient fear, a belief found in many of the world's major religions. The Christian Gospels are full of stories of Jesus casting out demons. The Catholic Church has a formal ritual for exorcism that's been around for centuries. This is all rooted in a theology of cosmic enemies: Satan, Beelzebub, Legion, beings defined by their rebellion against God and their desire to corrupt humanity. These films tap into a deep part of our culture. For believers, they're a literal dramatization of spiritual warfare. For non-believers, they still hit hard because they draw on thousands of years of stories about a personified ultimate evil. Even if you don't believe in the devil, you get what he represents. This is what makes the demon a better monster. A shark is driven by instinct. A slasher is driven by a twisted but still human psychology. Even a creature like the xenomorph is just a predator trying to survive. The demon in an exorcism movie is different. It is pure metaphysical malice. Look at what the demon Pazuzu does in The Exorcist. It doesn't just want to kill Regan, it wants to use her innocent body as a stage for, well, the ultimate blasphemy. It forces her to desecrate herself with a crucifix, to spew the most vile language imaginable, and to torture everyone around her. The demon's real target isn't Regan, it's the faith of everyone in that room. As Father Marin says, I think the point is to make us despair, to see ourselves as animal and ugly, to make us reject the possibility that God could love us. The demon's power is psychological. It taunts the priests with their deepest secrets and sins. It mimics the voice of Father Karras's dead mother, playing on his guilt. It knows things it shouldn't. This isn't a mindless monster. This is an enemy with refined cruelty. You can't reason with it, you can't bargain with it, and you can't kill it with a gun. The battle has to be fought on its terms, on a spiritual plane. And that brings us to the other key player in this drama, the priest. In most monster movies, the hero is a scientist or a soldier. Here, the hero is an exorcist. But critically, he's almost always a man whose faith is hanging by a thread. Father Damien Karras is just as much the soul of the exorcist as Regan is. He's a psychiatrist and a priest, torn between science and faith. When we meet him, he's questioning the very existence of God, consumed by guilt over his mother's lonely death. He's the perfect stand-in for the modern, skeptical viewer. He first approaches Regan's case as a psychiatrist, looking for a rational explanation. It's only when he's faced with things science can't explain, Regan speaking languages she's never learned, knowing his mother's private pet name, that he's forced to admit he's facing something else. His doubt is what makes the demon feel so powerful. If even the holy man is struggling to believe, what hope does anyone else have? This internal conflict makes the final showdown more than just good versus evil. The priest isn't a superhero in a collar. He's a flawed, vulnerable person who has to conquer his own demons before he can face the literal one. His main weapon isn't some magic spell, it's faith. And faith is a choice that has to be painfully remade again and again in the face of absolute despair. The horror, then, comes from the stakes of this cosmic war. The films create a universe where good and evil are real, tangible forces where heaven and hell are warring kingdoms, and the human soul is the battlefield. They create a reality with spiritual laws. The demon can't just barge in. It often needs an invitation, even an accidental one, like playing with a Ouija board. It recoils from holy water. It's compelled to speak its name. This creates a terrifying kind of logic. The supernatural isn't just random chaos. It has rules, and those rules imply a vast, unseen reality operating just beyond our senses. The terror is that we are all, whether we know it or not, players in this ancient war. It doesn't just ask if you believe in demons, it asks if you're prepared for a universe where demons believe in you. Okay, so you have the psychological terror of a mind breaking down and the spiritual dread of an ancient evil, but those are just ideas. The final piece of the puzzle is the cinematic magic that turns those fears into something we can see and feel. Exorcism films, especially the ones that follow the blueprint from The Exorcist, are built on a very specific and effective formula, a ritual of their own. So it all starts with the corruption of the domestic. Horror just, loves to invade safe spaces, and honestly no space is safer than the home, and no one more innocent than a child. The Exorcist isn't set in some haunted castle or anything, it's in a nice house in Georgetown. The horror begins in a child's bedroom, which is supposed to be a place of comfort and security. But then, the film slowly twists that space into a nightmare. The bed, which should be a symbol of rest, suddenly becomes an instrument of torture, shaking violently. The child's room turns into this freezing cold, desecrated prison cell. It's just profoundly unsettling. I mean, if you're not safe in your own bed, where are you safe? This corruption, well, it's pulled off through a masterful slow burn. Director William Friedkin, who actually came from documentary filmmaking, brought this stark realism to the movie. He doesn't just throw jump scares at you, instead he builds an almost unbearable atmosphere of dread. The horror, it just kind of creeps in. There's a strange noise from the attic, a daughter's reply that's just a little too sharp, a doctor's confused look. Friedkin lets the tension simmer, pulling the audience deeper and deeper into a state of anxiety. When that chaos is finally let loose, the film's focus is on the body as a battlefield. The physical transformation of the victim is really the visual centerpiece of the genre. It's how you actually see the spiritual decay on the outside. Linda Blair's transformation in The Exorcist is honestly legendary. The gruesome makeup, the sores, those yellow eyes, the unnatural contortions. It's like a visual of a soul being brutalized, and of course you have those iconic moments of body horror just burned into our minds. The head spinning around, the spider walk down the stairs, the projectile vomit. These aren't just for shock value, they're symbolic. They represent a complete reversal of the natural order. A human body just, shouldn't bend that way. But maybe the most powerful and overlooked tool here is the sound design. In these movies, sound is a primary weapon. The Exorcist is a masterpiece of audio terror. The demon Pazuzu is built as much through sound as visuals. The sound design layers in animal growls, the buzzing of bees and other unsettling noises often at a subliminal level, creating a constant sense of unease. The demon's voice itself is a terrifying work of art. It's the voice of actress Mercedes McCambridge who, chain-smoked and swallowed raw eggs to get that ragged guttural sound. Her voice was then blended with pig squeals to create something that sounds utterly inhuman. When you hear that voice come out of a 12-year-old girl's mouth, the clash is just honestly terrifying. Let's look at how a more modern film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, evolved this formula. As we said, it uses a courtroom structure. This completely changes the experience. Instead of seeing the possession happen in a straight line, we get the horror in fragmented flashbacks. Director Scott Derrickson uses this brilliantly. A witness will be calmly testifying and suddenly the film will cut to a visceral flashback of Emily's suffering. A doctor might be calmly explaining psychosis, and we flash to Emily's point of view, her vision warping as she sees demonic faces on the people around her. The horror isn't just in what we see, but in the contrast between the sterile courtroom and the raw terror of the past. The film uses fewer big special effects than The Exorcist. Instead, the horror is grounded in actress Jennifer Carpenter's incredible and harrowing physical performance. Her body twists into impossible, painful positions and her screams are, blood-curdling. It's terrifying and heartbreaking. Again, sound design is key with loud, piercing noises that create a sense of dread. By forcing us to interpret what we see, was it a seizure or a demonic attack, the film makes the audience an active participant. It doesn't just ask us to be scared, it asks us to be the judge. It proves the formula is adaptable, and that the core fears can be reframed for a new generation without losing any of their power. So, why do exorcism movies scare us more than any other monster? Because the battle takes place in the one arena we can never run from, our own consciousness. First, there's the psychological invasion. These films destroy our belief that we're in control of our own minds. They blur the lines between mental illness and supernatural attack until we start questioning what the self even is. The monster isn't coming for you, it's coming to become you. Second, let's talk about the theological weight. By plugging into thousands of years of religious belief, these films introduce an evil that is absolute, intelligent, and eternal. It's not a monster hunt, it's a battle in a cosmic war where our souls are the prize. And third, the cinematic execution. Through a finely tuned filmmaking ritual, corrupting the home, using a slow burn to build dread, turning the body into a battlefield, and using sound to invade our senses, these movies make the unbelievable feel real. This is why the fear sticks with you. You can leave the vampire in his castle, but the demon from an exorcism movie comes home with you. It plants a seed of doubt. The fear is introspective. When you're alone in the dark and hear a weird noise, the fear isn't just that someone is in the house. It's the whisper of a much scarier question. What if the call is coming from inside the house and the house is you? Exorcism movies terrify us because they show us our most private internal battles. They take our fears of losing control, of our own capacity for ugliness, of the fight between hope and despair, and they give those fears a face, a scarred, twisted, hateful one. They suggest that the greatest monster isn't a creature of flesh and blood, but the void left behind when our own soul gets pushed out. The real horror isn't that a demon can take your body, it's the chilling question of what you'd have to do to get it back. What do you think? Share the Exorcism movie that really got under your skin in the comments below. And if you want to keep dissecting the things that scare us in the dark, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.